So good afternoon and welcome to today's session of Business as Usual. Today marks 3 full weeks, day number 15 of us doing our daily Zooms. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I know that it is Passover, so happy Passover, and it's Good Friday, the beginning of Easter weekend, sending everyone much appreciation and love for all that everyone's doing as we move into week 4 of sheltering in place. So I'm Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and I am joined today by my co-host and also Vice President of Visibility at the Tech Council, Jonathan Kirsting. So a few things about today's call. First, it's not possible with strong support that we've gotten from our good friends at Huntington Bank. They stepped in to sponsor this series right away. And if you don't know about Huntington, they are actually the largest SBA lender here in southwestern Pennsylvania, and their team is providing incredible support for the community and the work that they're doing right now. Couldn't be more important. And speaking of the SBA, for those of you who are struggling with questions on SBA loans, today, the Tech Council launched a virtual help desk, and we will be staffing that each day this week, which includes today at 2 o'clock by Pittsburgh area professionals. Today, we have Jackson Kelly, who will be available to answer questions. If you're interested in participating, you should have received a note last night from Brian Kennedy on our team, or you will find the registration link posted in the chat session. They are highly informative and helpful. So I also want to thank the team at AT&T for their support of everything we do in public policy, and more importantly, for the support that they have provided to the broader community. Just this week, AT&T committed $5.5 million to provide much needed support in form of nourishing meals and for first responders, medical personnel, and others in need impacted by COVID-19. And portions of that donation will go to support Feeding America, which supports the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank and Westmoreland County Food Bank. So just a little bit about the technology and some protocol here. Most of you will notice that we have muted your microphones. I would ask that you keep your microphones on mute throughout the entire call. Some of us have a lot of background noise around us. We want to make sure that we can hear our guest, Lisa, very clearly. So with that said, we want this call to be interactive. So please take note at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box, and you can ask questions in there, and we will work hard to try to answer those questions. We also want, if we don't get a chance to answer those questions, this is recorded, and we will also have those questions hopefully answered on our website. You'll see where the recordings are. And lastly, and most importantly, this is not an opportunity for you to advertise your product. So I really appreciate all this. So with that, I want to jump in and welcome Lisa Schroeder, who serves as the president and CEO of the Pittsburgh Foundation. So Lisa, thank you for being here. And let's just jump in and set the stage by having you talk about who and what the Pittsburgh Foundation is and why you're actually different than other foundations.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Audrey. And I just have to start by saying it's very typical of your leadership to bring people together to generate dialogue and innovative conversation. So thank you so much from all of us for doing this every day. The Pittsburgh Foundation is now 75 years old this year, with the beautiful mission of consistently serving the most vulnerable in our community. A community foundation is, in fact, a unique construct authorized by the IRS to do 2 things that make it different from private and family foundations. One is to accept donations from families and individuals. And we have an astonishing 2,300 individual funds at the Pittsburgh Foundation that have been established by people who have philanthropic goals and intentions, and who work with our staff to make sure that they can meet them generation after generation. The other, and so that's in addition to our grant making. The other thing that distinguishes a community foundation is the right to advocate. And so we are enabled and authorized to advocate around policy and legislation to make change, and particularly systems change where it is appropriate on behalf of the community.
Wow. So, and actually, aren't you one of the largest foundations of your type in the United States?
We are, in fact, we are the 13th largest of community foundation, and it's important to know our assets are just about $1 billion. We were over $1 billion, and we're confident that we'll get back there. But one really impressive statistic is that community foundations collectively in this country have rallied more than 274 million of support for the COVID virus and the impacts and the crisis in the nation.
So during the COVID-19 crisis, which we're in right now, your work has been exacerbated and the community is facing overwhelming needs from almost every corner of society. So to help address those needs, you've created the Emergency Action Fund. Tell us about that.
Yeah. This is a great Pittsburgh story. On March 15th, which was a Sunday, the health department met for hours, and the chairman of the Pittsburgh Foundation, Edie Shapira, is also on the board of the health department. And she made calls after that meeting to me and to Grant Oliphant at the Heinz Endowments to let us know that the data was clearly that in the nation and in our region, we were on a track to surpass the hospitalization capability. That caused us to jump into action, and starting with the goal of getting the public dollars out the door as fast as possible to fight the spread of the virus. And I'm delighted to say that by Wednesday, the Pittsburgh Foundation, the Heinz Endowments, the Hillman Family Foundations, and the Richard King Mellon Foundation had each contributed $1 million to start the Community Action Fund. I don't know that there's any other city where foundations are so closely and strategically aligned that the action could have taken place that efficiently. But the goals of the fund are twofold. One is we have been working with the Departments of Human Services and the Health Department and the United Way to provide emergency medical support with personnel and equipment to provide 150 units of housing and food distribution to house those who needed to quarantine and could not quarantine in place, to double the capacity of the 211 and emergency family fund capabilities. It was our goal to start by really making sure that we know that the vast percentage of resources are going to come from the public, but we also knew we could really help them get there fast and more efficiently. The second part of the fund is to support the nonprofits who are working to support vulnerable populations, to provide childcare and senior care, to do food distribution, to make up for lost wages, and to provide housing where it's needed. So we're just thrilled at the response, because on top of the original dedication of foundation funds, we now have another $3 million in funds. Over 600,000 of that comes from Pittsburgh Foundation donors, and the remainder comes from more than 25 businesses, corporations, and other foundations. So this is a story of generosity that is really amazing. I will say that we have over 300 proposals from the nonprofits who are working so hard and so desperately need help. So we're still fundraising, because we want to make sure that it's a program of rapid response grants that will go out to support operating for these organizations when they need it most.
So individuals can contribute to the Pittsburgh Foundation
They absolutely can. If you go to www.pittsburghfoundation.org, you'll see the Emergency Action Fund prominently featured on the website.
Okay, which
And
is
any
different than,
donation, there's no donation is too small.
okay.
We welcome participation, and we think it makes people really feel wonderful that they can step in. A
And
crisis.
they can direct their donations to that fund.
Yes, right there on the website. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So just stay with that for a minute and talk about what are the kinds of needs that you're seeing? Like, what are some of the patterns that you're seeing?
Yeah, the patterns are truly looking at supporting those workers who are, are essential responders. They have needs for senior care, for child care, for support for their families in terms of medical support and quarantine. We also are seeing. Last night, I ended the night with in a long talk with Dr. Deb Bogan from the health department, who talk about a heroine and somebody who has jumped in trial by fire. One of the things that has risen to the surface is the stark needs in Black and brown communities, in part because the level of transmission and infection is alarmingly high. And we're also hearing from faith-based leaders that there's a desperate need for masks and a need for help with physical distancing. So these are time-bound needs, and that we hope, but what this reveals are really stark inequities in our community that have to be our focus over the long term in terms of support and concentration.
Okay, Jonathan, do you want to, I know we have a question here that we want to jump in.
Yeah, and Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time today. And it's just really, we often forget how Pittsburgh is so blessed to have these foundations come together like this and really make such a huge difference. So I'm not sure, are we going to unmute Ellie so she can ask her question? She's got a really good question for you here. BK, can we unmute Ellie for the question? Ellie, are you ready?
Hi. Yes, hi, Lisa. Thanks so much for joining us. I was wondering if small social good businesses would be able to access funds from the Pittsburgh Foundation. And if so, how would we do that?
Small businesses?
Small social good businesses.
Social good businesses. The criteria for the Emergency Action Fund are on the website. A 501c3 status is a requirement. That said, to Jonathan's point, there is an astounding range of support that is being dedicated by 8 to 10 foundations, some of which is targeted to different classifications of organizations. If you contact me at my email, which is president@pghfdn.org, then we'll do our best to connect you to sources of support and resources that will help you get what you need.
Excellent. And so we've put that in the chat so everyone can see the direct email for Lisa. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ella.
And one thing that I would note is that just as you are creating, just as you're providing helpline, the Tech Council helpline for small businesses, we have launched this week a webinar series that is sponsored pro bono by Jones Day, worldwide law firm. They've brought together lawyers and experts around all aspects of legal and government aid to nonprofits. These are very, very informative and detailed presentations that will be recorded. So I will also make sure that connection gets to this website so that you can participate in areas where that are relevant. We know that, as generous as the foundation and the philanthropic sector is here, the philanthropy can really, only make up a small percentage of what's needed here. So we also want to work with you to make sure that everyone is aware of what's available out there for them.
So you are working closely, as you mentioned earlier, with the key leaders in the Allegheny Department, such as Health and Department of Human Services. What are you hearing? Any stories? How is that impacting some of your priorities each and every day?
Yeah. First of all, what a great job they're doing and how quickly they sprung into action. I think that one of the good stories are the first two needs that came up. And one was the need for people who had been living in residential facilities. The county had to close, I think it's 350 agencies. And so you can imagine, the people who were occupying residential facilities, particularly senior care, who suddenly were at risk, had, many of whom have underlying conditions, had the need to quarantine. And the county Human Services Department took a leaf from London, actually, the page of London, and went to hotels, which were only about 2% occupied, and negotiated a lease in 4 different facilities in 4 different locations to house, at this point, 150 people, safe and together in facilities, but isolated with units and rooms, food provided, operations provided, and we pulled that off with support from the Emergency Action Fund within a week. So that's a really great story about how fast they can operate and how innovative they are.
So it's just amazing that people are working really round the clock to try to get the support that they need. That's where we're also excited to have Lisa Scales on Monday to talk about the food bank, because that piece has got to be more profound than many of us really understand.
That's so true. In fact, the food distribution network that has been, it was really, really wonderful to see the food bank in particular profiled in NBC and ABC News one night this week for the incredible scale of distribution that they're doing. There are also a lot of interesting different networks, as she'll explain, that are supplementing that. There's a great partnership between the United Way and PNC Bank and Eaton Park. And today, for the Emergency Action Fund, we are considering a proposal to support access transportation to get food distribution within the Allegheny County, but also moving out into the counties, beyond our borders, because this need is very widespread.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's cool to see people doing something both physically and medically.
That's something as basic as, like, we got to eat. And when you see the line of cars when they had that coverage, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is in Pittsburgh that we're seeing this. And it just makes me glad that, like, we have these resources that are addressing this right now.
Yes.
Are there any more questions out there, Jonathan, that you want to grab before I go into my next?
Not right now. So keep rolling ahead, Audrey.
Okay, great. So the tech community has rallied around the Beyond the Laptop campaign, and thanks to Aurora and Google and several others who have joined forces to help neighborhood allies in the Pittsburgh public schools, this work seems to resonate with you personally and professionally. Why? And can you talk about other ways that the tech sector can be helpful and impactful right now?
Definitely.
I'm so excited about this because I think we're all experiencing, certainly, at the Pittsburgh Foundation, where we do almost all our work through, video meetings. We're seeing children of all ages pop in and out with pets and working on schoolwork and all over the country, but particularly in our neighborhoods that are vulnerable here in southwestern Pennsylvania. there is going to be a desperate need for us to do what we have not done before, which is to find innovative ways to introduce content and to engage people of all ages. You know, the whole concept of families learning together and parents, you know, being, it's a challenge. It's a challenge and an opportunity. Parents are suddenly forced into the role of leading their children's education. And what's so clear is the vast range of availability of resources. And this is where we really need you, because you are the new Pittsburgh. You have the technological background, you have the culture of innovation. You by nature reinvent the systems, and we're eager at the Pittsburgh Foundation to really focus on equal access to every child in our region. And that means equipment. It also means the underlying infrastructure to make sure that while we are considering a federal package, and the prediction is that the next and current package will be focused on infrastructure. It should, you know, it should feature technological infrastructure. And we heard the mayor talk about this on your show a couple of days ago. So the system that you have set up, the support and the enthusiasm that you have in the technology community, believe me, this is not our area of expertise. And so if we can join, I hasten to say that Kamal Nigam is a very active board member at the Pittsburgh Foundation and a donor. So we have an ambassador, and would love to be able to collaborate and figure out why not Pittsburgh lead the way in terms of solving a problem that the whole nation is wrestling with, and in a way that is equitable and democratic.
And Kamal is on our board at the Tech Council as well. So
Exactly
that
right.
serves as I take that as an action item
As an
for
intersection.
us to work together to try to collaborate on that as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we can contribute directly right into this fund. I think that's one of the things that you've mentioned. We can try to convene and try to provide that kind of support. And that's what we're trying to do here, is that we, you know, at the Tech Council, we don't have all the answers. We're trying to make sure that we're really setting an inclusive table and get the right people who are having the right conversations and actions tied. And no better than to have the Pittsburgh Foundation, where people can, serve as an advocate as well as a shepherd of people's funding and priorities. So thank you for that. One last thing. Okay, go on.
Just very quickly, I think one of the exciting things about this is that no one has the answer. You know, that this is a moment of reinvention. And, you know, if I could just go back to the year 2000, when I first came to Pittsburgh, and our biggest challenge at that time was that we had the lowest birth rate and the largest senior citizen population of any city other than Cleveland. And no one could have predicted the growth, which has been led by the technology center and the innovation that has taken place through the universities and through medical institutions. The transformation is really unbelievable. So we have done this before, and that really sets the table for unbelievable leadership, I think, and innovation going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, you know, we're going to stay in touch with you, and you're going to stay in touch with us. And we have people here. We have people here who care about this. And the issues that are coming up in the chat are all around equity, all around, you know, that this is our opportunity here to, right now in the middle of this crisis, to make sure that everyone has the tools that they need, and kids between K through 12 have the tools that they need to, you know, survive and thrive in what, who knows, will become of schools of tomorrow. And that's really what gets our heart. So I want to thank you for your time with us. I want to thank you for your leadership. I'm very thrilled that we have Lisa Scales as well on Monday, which is her work has been supported by the Pittsburgh Foundation. I think it's important to understand that basic needs are not being met. But don't hesitate to reach out to us as well, because we want to be here for you.
Thank you. You can count on it. I think this is a new chapter,
Yes,
and
it is.
forward-looking chapter, and that will be the silver lining that comes out
Well,
of the hardship of this crisis.
I think so. And I forgot to mention at the beginning that actually Lisa has been, I mean, she has been in Pittsburgh, ran another prominent nonprofit, and it was River Life. And we knew early on when I started the partnership with the Rivers is critical to our work. Then she left for Baltimore and came back to this job. So she, like many of us, have our hearts in Pittsburgh, no matter where we're from. And I'm thrilled to have you here. So thank you all. I want to again thank Huntington Bank and AT&T. I'm looking forward to hosting Lisa Scales, who leads the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. Tuesday, we also have a special 1-hour program with featured guest Ajit Pai, who serves as the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, who will be followed by Jay Brown, president and CEO of Crown Castle. So we have a packed week, including Highmark executives, and we're just going to continue to make sure that the community knows what's going on, and the intersections of tech and the Greater Pittsburgh is real and authentic. So thank you, Jonathan, for being with us today as well. Jonathan,
we're in overdrive, Audrey. We're in overdrive.
We are in overdrive. And happy Passover and happy Easter, and please all stay safe.